our aging parents would make. Maybe they don't want to prolong things and make them go on and on. How do we come to a balance of what we want and what they want?
Well, I think sometimes, actually a lot of the times what I encourage family members to do is to step back and to really pray about what I would want in regards to my parents. Because if they're telling me, hey Sue, I really want these things done, I really don't want these things done, then I really need to put myself aside and give it to God and let it go and say, I need to follow through with what they want. I need to honor them in this because we've sat down, we've had the conversation, and they made it very clear. And I had to do that for my grandfather at the end of his life. I knew that he would not have wanted a lot of things to be done, and so he had had a massive stroke and was pretty unresponsive. And the doctors kept wanting to do more tests, and I said, no, we're putting him on hospice. We're going to take him back to the skilled nursing facility, and he's going to be comfortable. And that's what he would have wanted. He would have wanted these things done, and we had that conversation. So it made it a lot easier, even though I wanted to keep my grandpa around, you know? But I knew, too, that he made it very clear, and I needed to honor him in that.
All right, so we're getting down to the last couple of minutes of this first part of the program, but what about being a caregiver in your home, taking care of an aging family member, and then realizing maybe you can't live up to your end of the bargain, that maybe things are just really getting overwhelming? What do you do?
Well, there's a lot of resources out there that can help. First off, you need to have somebody come in from the outside. So call the local social service organization, look for resources that can come in and evaluate and see, what do you really need? Would it be good for somebody to come in however many hours a day to help care for your loved one? Or is it really to the point where there's a lot of physical care needed, and maybe they need to be somewhere where people are actually trained to care for them 24 hours a day? And so being able to bring in somebody from the outside to help with that is wonderful. I even did that, even though I've worked in the field for as long as I have, I actually brought somebody else in because, again, when it's my family, I was the granddaughter. I wasn't the professional going in and evaluating the situation. So I actually brought a geriatric care manager in to evaluate and to help really work the family dynamics to say, you know what, it's really better if he's in a different environment now. So you need to bring somebody else in, and it's okay. And letting go of the guilt of that, we're just not wired to care for somebody 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, especially if there's physical care or if they have Alzheimer's and there's a lot of behavior issues that go along with that. We need to bring other people in. That's why God wired people up to be in these positions and trained to really do these things, whether it's physical care or dealing with the cognitive issues of Alzheimer's.
All right, so we're out of time for the first part of this program.
Okay.
We're going to come back right after the break. We're going to stay with Sue. We're going to talk about some more senior issues, so stay tuned and we'll see you then. Hello and welcome back to Joy in Our Town. Again, my name is Emily Young. We're sticking with our seniors issue because there's a lot to cover with caregivers and also with seniors themselves. We're still with Sue Salach, who is president of Aging Info USA, author. We're just going to keep going, Sue, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about bringing a loved one into your home to do caregiving. What do people really need to look at before they make that decision?
Well, they need to look at the physical environment. If you have someone who is elderly and let's say they have Parkinson's. With Parkinson's disease, a lot of times people will shuffle their feet. Well, if you have a lot of throw rugs or you have a lot of areas maybe where there's a step up, that might not be the best environment for someone to be living in, because what it will do is really restrict them and won't allow them a lot of independence in the home. Also, small animals. One of the things that we realized when my grandfather moved in with us is we have little dogs. Well, they're a trip hazard.
Right.
You don't think about that. You
Right.
think they cuddle on the couch with you, but really for him, they had become a trip hazard because they would be running in front of him and he's shuffling, and then all of a sudden there's a dog there.
Right.
You know, and all of those little things. Where is the bathroom located? Is it accessible? Will all of the environment that is in your home and outside your home really be conducive to somebody staying independent? Or are you just moving them in because you feel guilty and say, well, I told mom I'd never put her in a nursing home. And by the way, I don't ever encourage people to ever say that to their family members, because again, if there comes a time where they need to be somewhere where somebody is trained to care for them 24 hours a day, that's really okay. And people, the guilt is so overwhelming, and people
Right.
need to really let that go and know that they're doing the best that they can do for the person that they love. But you need to look at the environment. You need to look at schedules. You know, in the summer, my husband and I are very flexible. We could be home quite often, and you know, it stays light for a lot of hours, and then all of a sudden the fall comes, the time changes, and it's dark at 5 o'clock. Well, for someone who's in a home that isn't their home, even though we tried to give my grandfather his space, sometimes he'd forget where the light switches were. So we'd come home maybe at 6 o'clock. For an hour, he's been sitting in the dark, and he's not happy, which I don't blame him.
Right.
But those were the things we didn't think of. Those feel like very long days to him because it gets dark so early, and our schedules got very busy in the fall. So maybe we weren't home till 7 or 8 o'clock at night, and so we weren't there to even help make dinner for him, or we were running in and out, and just trying to look at what is your life like and what is your schedule like. And is this person that you're bringing into your home that you love, are they going to be sitting around alone a lot? Because that's not a good life for someone, even though they want to be with family, but to be able to have them maybe in a retirement community, an assisted living, looking at those places where there's activity
people
going on all the time, there's people all the time, and where you can just go and be their son, their daughter, their family member, and just spend time with them. That's huge. That's a better gift that you can give that person than really having them in your home where there's a lot of things that are creating an environment that becomes very small.
So do you also suggest that people check out facilities in their area when they're looking at placing a loved one, maybe in assisted care or in a retirement center? I think a lot of times we as children, when we're placing someone, place them to the one closest to our house, so
Right.
that it's easier for us to have access to them and go and visit. But maybe that's not the best environment for them. Do you see that people really need to check those places out?
Right, I really do. And depending on how active your family member is, you know, a lot of times people will have this huge list of different places to go look at. And taking that and maybe going with a sibling and narrowing it down to 4 or 5, and then bringing mom or dad with to look at those. So it's not so overwhelming looking at a lot of different places. After a while, they kind of start to look alike. You're not remembering what's where, and did you really like this one, and what was the name of that woman I met with, and making sure you take notes. You know, it feels very awkward for us. We don't want to pull out a pen and paper because, you know, if there's some, you know, weird dynamic there then, but there's nothing wrong with taking notes. There's a lot of information that they're giving you when you're going on tour, so taking notes and sitting down afterwards then with your loved one saying, what'd you think of the place? And then even a lot of the retirement communities have respite stays, so somebody can go for a week and just check it out.
Really?
Yeah, and they can just stay there. They have usually a guest apartment. They can stay there and just see what it's like to live there for a week. And that's really neat too, because then they get to see all the activities that are going on and programs. They get to meet some of the people who are there. A lot of times in the communities, they'll actually pair them up with somebody who has lived there for a while. So that's kind of their, you know, escort to take them around and introduce them to people and let them know what's going on with activities. And so it's a really neat way to kind of try out these places and see, wow, this one's really great. And, you know, mom's there for a week and all of a sudden she's like,